Here's a game from Mir Sultan Khan, Hastings, 1932. All right. But look at his style too before we get to this puzzle. Let's kind of see how solid he was. Kind of a static player, I guess you can say. Very positional. You see he often gets closed positions or semi-closed positions. So here he already has bishop pair. Double pawns, but you can see the double pawns cover a lot of the center. And knight maneuvers over to g6. Now it's interesting to see how he gets the dark square control. Just blocks him. You see the h4 is coming. He simply blocks him, keeps the pin on the knight. So it looks good for him so far, right? This bishop's a little bit passive on e7. Well, I said f6. Maybe we'll come there later. But he just simply goes back, attacks the queen. Everything's centralized. Now it's very important that he wants to grab that e5 square. So again, the bishop's pretty bad. It will be improved. Obviously, he knows that. So and f6 looks bad too. But it all has there's a method to the apparent madness. We see we can get to e5 with the knight, and he's going to have a trade ultimately. That's going to begin to open the bishop, right? Looking at this pawn, and we can always open it later with d5. So we'll see how that plays out. No more bishop pair. And we have to prove that our bishop's better than the knight. Also, it's king side. So it's like kind of counterintuitive moves, right? Because now it's like, well, our king's kind of open over here. You know, you have the half open f file. The king looks a little open with h5 and all. White's king looks a little safer, but he will find play on the half open b file. And he does have good central control. Again, look at those double pawns, covering a lot of squares. Start pressing on the queen side. Okay, tighten the screws right there. Of course, knight f5 is coming, and you'll see he's such a prophylactic player. Stopping like an early prophylactic player, like 1930s. I mean, kind of like, you know, some of Nimzovic's concepts. Looking at Capablanca, you know, this is after Capablanca was champion. So definitely, I imagine he studied a lot of Capablanca games. You'll see the style. Pressing on the queen side. But even though we are in an end game, an early end game, like still attacking, right? You see how he's putting pressure. The bishop eventually. You'll see that even though the bishop doesn't look good, look, let's find a new pathway for the bishop. Can you guys figure out what do you think is the best way to mobilize our bishop? The rooks are looking great. They both have a half open file. Again, lots of central control. This is squeezing him, using that pawn to like, squeeze him on the queen side. And what about the bishop? How do you guys think you can mobilize? Hey, Richard, how's it going?
Hello. Good.
What do you guys think about that? I couldn't really hear. What do you guys think about the bishop? So Richard, this is kind of like, this isn't a puzzle. This is like an improving puzzle in a way, improve a piece. But then we're going to look at specific puzzle scenarios. One is what could have been. What is what actually happened to finish his opponent off. So what would you do here to improve your bishop? I mean, obviously, look, your bishop is like your worst piece in a way right now. Your rooks are great. Well, we're gonna plop our rook on f3. That's nice too. But this bishop, what do we do with it?
Push D a pawn to d5 and make the exchange, and the bishop is free.
He does do that later, and yeah, the bishop will come out that way. Only potential drawback. Does that work? It might work, but there's only, just think about the one drawback that at least we need to consider with d5. Let's say d5, envision pawn takes pawn on d5. What can white do at that point?
Is a rook takes e5?
Right, then you have rook takes e5, right? And
yeah.
Then the and f2, it happens to be guarded by the knight. So very defensive position for white, but he does, you see, Lenny probably just wins a pawn. And there's even bishop f6, but the knight still guards. That's very handy. You see, Len? So it probably works for white. What do you think? I mean, it's not that bad, but we don't need to yet. What do you think? We can keep it in mind.
Yeah, he takes.
See anything else we could? I would love for that to work. Unfortunately, well, there's a check too, and unfortunately, it's covered by the knight. Seems like he's got it covered. I mean, you'd even have cool things like a bishop sack and then pawn push. You'd have stuff on b2 as well, but I guess that gets him off the hook for now. And then, hey, I mean, if you have to even push your b pawn, you may have to. It's not the end of the world. You know, don't let him get on the a file. But yeah, maybe white's okay. It's not ideal. You know, it's impressed, but you can wait, I guess. What do you think, Lynn? It's definitely an idea, though, to use.
You got to move that thing out of the way.
Where did it come from?
I don't know.
Go away. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. So what do you think, Lynn? Would you go for it now or maybe wait? It's a candidate move for sure, though. It's definitely interesting because, like I said,
But
bishop
what
F6.
else would you do with the bishop? I mean, you can move him to F6, but then he's still cramped in until you
Yeah,
move.
keep looking, man.
I
Keep
F8.
looking. There's only one other way. Keep looking.
Yeah, it's got to be
Yeah,
F8.
that's a good F8 to what? You see it now, then you just like look at the diagonals, like which diagonal can I reach? I like C5. I like F6 if it's open, which would actually be a thing.
Yeah,
But
I
again,
see
like
a lot of
it's certainly,
masters
no, it's
play
certainly a definitely
F8.
candidate, but I just don't know if we need it now, but he didn't do it yet. He actually did it later. It's definitely out there though. It's definitely available for you whenever you want. And then what about F8, Nikki? Did you say something
Okay.
too, Richard?
Oh
I
yeah,
see a lot of
F8.
masters play that. Like I haven't gotten to the point where I could play it consistently well, but I have seen a lot of masters play it.
Play what?
Bishop at F8. You know, I like to play the knight there because you know how to say the knight on F8 prevents it.
Yeah.
I've
Except
seen
this
a
is
lot,
certainly
yeah.
aggressive. This is very aggressive. A lot of times they'll do it like in the Roy Lopez, and Black will kind of tighten it up and actually fianchetto later after the fact, right? Or even a knight fianchettos in a way. But often the knight F8 could be it's defensive in terms of H7, but also knight F8 to G6 or E6 more aggressive later on. F8 to H6 certainly aggressive. It's a way to maximize our bishop. So you can kind of work backwards too, Lynn, right? Be like, oh, what bishop, what diagonal would I like my bishop to be on? I'd like it to be on this diagonal, right? If I can, that's the way to get there. Work backwards. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And on C5, but just have to sort of prepare for it tactically.
Yeah.
Okay, so start hovering around now. Why not? What attack says? Let's hover around here. E3. We'll come back. Now we have rigidity in white structure. Right? Very rigid, hard to push those pawns on the queen side now. Pressure on the king side. It would just go away. So what? And look at that beautiful double pawn right there. Yeah, that's creating potential superiority for our bishop. Oh, by the way, wait a second. No, he did do right. No, he did go bishop F6. But I mean, yeah, but that's the idea though, to come to the diagonal. He will. That's our idea. It kind of probes a little bit, and then there you go. So, a bishop. Actually, funny enough, he went F6. I forgot that he did that first. It didn't really make a difference. But yeah, there's your rook F3. So tons of pressure, right? And hey, he might be the one to double white's pawns. And ideally, we'd like to wrap our rook around. If we could double up on the F file, that looks really strong. But he's got pressure across the board. And interestingly, by blockading the F pawn, he's effectively split the pawns. So the E pawn is sort of de facto isolated right now. The C pawn's de facto isolated. As you push here, if you push, you take almost on. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now we have the improvement of the king. So you can just see like his advantages are compounding now, right? Pressure on C4, pressure on E3, and maybe E4 later. King improvement, better bishop, tying down the knight. D1. Interestingly, it's not going to help him too much here, coming in the middle with white king. And again, that white C6, covering the light squares with C6, the knight doesn't get to come in at all.
I
Then
found
D5.
that very difficult to like know like when to start improving your king and when to like start pushing your pawns. Like I have a lot of trouble with that.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky because it's good for black, but not good for white. It will based on, there you go, D5. There's your move, Lynn. Basically, we made both happen. It's just a matter of when he chose to time it. But yeah, for sure. White didn't. Well, first of all, white walks into a pin, which you think, okay, it's temporary. I'm not sure how much the king is going to help. But as for black, I mean, you could kind of assess that it should be safe with the pawn cover. But then again, when you play D5, it opens. So you do have to be careful. It's one of those situational things. And it's like, what does the black king actually do? I mean, he kind of stands ready. Maybe he could do some stuff. Imagine you're king and pawning, and what if the king is on C5? Right? What if you go like this? Trade everything, king C5, maybe wins, right? Depending on where the white king is. You're looking in here. So, and I love that A4 pawn, that original probing over here to put pressure on the B file in the middle game. It looks pretty good in the end game, so long as it doesn't get taken by like knight, D1 to C3, which isn't happening anytime soon. Well, funny enough, the time if he does do that, like if he's able to get there, hypothetically, boom, we just take C4, right? And then we're guarding anyway. So anyway, yeah, it's not easy for white to progress here. A lot of pressure. I imagine the computer would like it a lot too, but just intrinsically understanding this. So d5. Why is d5 working? Okay, stick with this pawn. Now there's a lot of pressure on d5. Right? White is really working that, you know, they got 2 pawns and a knight. We've got a rook and a pawn. So technically white has more control. Now we can always take the knight if we want to remove the defender of the d5 square, but why? We're not ready yet necessarily. So let's see what happens. Well, we can look at pawn takes with the C pawn takes. Now the E pawn takes back. Here's the question. Why doesn't the knight take? We look at both, right? Because they go king e2, e4. He did ultimately take now, right? And then we have our game. Why wouldn't the knight take right away? There's actually a tactical justification. So what is it that black has here? Justify this pawn thrust.
Is it a check? I don't know.
There's a check. Oh, there's a check.
Yeah,
And then look at your bishop. Now we're really exploiting that centralized game. Well, obviously it's king e2 though. Can't go rook d2 because you take. What about check? Visualize check, king e2. Then what happens?
Rook takes
Rook takes what?
knight.
Which rook?
The one on D.
Right. So you check, you lure the king away, then you take. Is that working? You guys see what's going on?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Why is that working tactically? What's the motif there?
Because it keeps
you want to get that rook down to C1.
You got a pin now.
Yeah.
Take. See?
Mhm.
And then you win the bishop. You're up a bishop. So yeah, this is really strong. And what if pawn takes? Maybe it's similar to the game. In the game, they went king e2 then took. What if pawn takes now? Figure that out. I mean, it might not be dramatic, but it might just be some, you know, invasion. Because look at the pressure on f2. How do we handle that? How do we exploit the pressure on f2?
rook takes, king takes, rook takes, knight takes. I guess we just take the rook.
Take the rook, yeah.
And then what is the rook defending? Remove the defender from.
The F pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you think so?
Maybe.
Bye, Leah.
Bye, Leah.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah, it looks like it works, but you know, it's one of those things where I realize I visualize wrongly a lot.
Yeah, I'll get forked or something.
Yeah, I mean, and here, yeah, it's tricky. You know, kind of got to make it happen. Again, he's very patient, but ultimately he needs to break through, and he does, to exploit his better pieces and the pin. But you see that pin rather than was previously a pin. I mean, gotta be careful. Gotta use my language accurately. But it was a pin, and now there's the check, and so we see that diagonal, creating a lot of fire in there, creating problems with the superior bishop. So when you bust it open with d5, you create tactical scenarios to exploit these superior pieces. Tactics flow from a superior position. So we have, but yeah, that's just strong. And we just show our superior bishop, and now you got to watch out for the knight. Okay, well, this is hanging too if you move away. So king c3, let's say. How about rook here? Rook f3, it's a fork, right? Got to come back and take. Okay, that's just bad. And then this h pawn's a target. We can even play g5 later and get our pass pawn. But I think this is probably going to fall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh wait, we got 5 to 4. We can probably trade down soon and get
I
the
was
winning
just
end
thinking
game.
maybe just trade
Probably just
everything.
do that. Probably just liquidate. Yeah, we'd have to double check, but the liquidation should work. King
Looks like
comes
that
in,
D
put pressure
pawn's
on this
gonna
pawn.
fall. Yeah.
Sorry, what's that?
I was just thinking the same, like the D pawn will fall too, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Because and also we have the g5 break at the right moment. You could time out g5 break, hang the g pawn, but then you push the h pawn, depending on position, right? So anyway, it's too much. It's just too much. So there's that line. This is all justified, right? Again, going back to when d5 was played. So this is the kind of thing where the tactic may not come to pass, but it's embedded in these lines. Right? You have to see the tactical possibilities to know you can do it. So it's a positional aim, right? Just blast it open, but that enhances our chips. And really, it's like any attack on a centralized king. We have 2 rooks and a bishop shooting in there, right? Let's go for it. What else do you do? Like he's been carefully, patiently probing, but it's about time for this break, right? And unless you can, you know, maximize your position even and do anything else to maximize your piece. I think they're pretty well maximized. And even with the king, I mean, again, like maybe if the king comes here and prepares some liquidation and comes in, but that doesn't look like it's happening just yet. And he stands ready again just to come to the middle, or maybe in some lines to start probing the king side too. So it's very flexible. And Nikki, yeah, we know ours is safe and theirs isn't. So it's just situational. And we do have more central pawns than them. Well, we have a massive centralization of our pawns. They have 2 pawns looking at the center. We have 4 pawns that can influence the center, right? Because even the C7 pawn, it covers this D6 pawn as a pawn chain. And then if you ever play like C5, you play C6, you can do a lot of things with that center. It's a lot of influence over the center. Ultimately, he does it. Now, what if last thing? Wait, no, we looked at those lines, right? Not yeah, we looked at all those lines. Now the king goes to E2. He guards it. Okay, he ultimately does give him the D pawn. Kicks the knight out. He's like, he doesn't necessarily. That's interesting, right?
Oh, wow.
So what's the justification? That gets even murkier, right? There's a fork. He wins the pawn, and he doubles. So it's like, wait, this is tricky, right? 3, 4, 5, 6. He's down 2 pawns. That's incredible, right? So you see, he's given him 1 pawn. He voluntarily he didn't have to. He voluntarily gives him another pawn. But now see, it's all our pressure. We have 2 rooks, a pawn, and a bishop all over here on the king side, threatening to win this. How does he defend it? Good. Been the class guy. Okay, king here. Like this one. So you see, he sees that it's going to be just destruction of his position now, right? H3. And again, we have that problem with the H4 pawn. I mean, if we win I think it's very hard to defend the H4 pawn. And you can see if you win that pawn, 2 connected pass pawns, bishop shooting in, rooks activated, and our king is safe enough, right? Still safe enough on C7. And what is the wayward knight doing? He's going to spend a move to recentralize it. Still not doing anything. And look at that useful C6 pawn. 1 pawn went away. We replaced it with another C6 pawn. And that's how we dominate the knight. And we just see in this case, in many cases, the knight can be good and dominate the bishop. But in this case, it's really the bishop that dominates. So we win that. And, that imbalance ends up favoring it. Don't we have rook G4? Yes, we do. It's a fork. So what do we have? 3 versus 5. So we're going to be down like maybe a pawn, but it doesn't matter because these pawns are all fragmented. Well, I mean, those are together, but like this is fragmented, but we just want that. We want the H4. Okay. Yeah, I mean, E pawn, H pawn, C pawn could come under fire. Okay, he's just going to go after the pawn, take it. That's it. And now let's just finish him off. Finally, the knight finally got rid of the C pawn and came in. Too little, too late. And now we have equal pawns again. But you can see how it's vastly superior. Bishop C5, yeah. King D3. G5. Not right now. Not right now. Not right now. Yeah. After we play, okay? All right. He just keeps probing. Okay. Okay. I mean, you could, oh no, I just showed you, hopefully you guys didn't see it. I just showed you the answer. This is the end of it. So, I mean, ultimately though, it's all about the setup, right? It comes down to 2 pawns against 2 pawns. Ours are better pawns. Our positioning is great. I mean, the knight, yeah, it came in the game. Fortunately, wasn't able to do anything. We have great positioning. The E pawn's about to fall. We lure the king away from the center. And what's the tactic? I think you guys may have seen it. Who didn't see the tactic? I did it for like half a second. Did anyone not see the move? So you could still try
Well,
to
I
find it.
saw you move the rook.
You see, don't say what it is. Don't say what it is. Don't say what it is. Right.
Okay, okay, but
Who did not see it? You can try to guess it.
I was actually thinking, bishop.
Oh, that's strong. Yeah, that. Oh, wait. Oh, that would actually probably work if you lead with the bishop. This is just like once you do this, there's no chance, but that would probably work as well. Maybe interchangeable. Did anyone not see it that wants to try to guess it though? You guys all saw it.
I guess so. So show it. I want to see it.
Show it. Wait, show it.
I was thinking about, yeah.
If I go, should I do it again though? But did anyone not see it? John, Richard, you guys saw it?
Yeah, so you moved the rook.
Okay, I have revealed it. Okay, there's no secret anymore. But still, to see why is pretty cool. You just take it. So actually, you're clearing the diagonal and you're removing the defender of the rook. So you'll actually be up an entire piece.
Yeah.
No matter what, you're up an entire piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they check, it doesn't do anything. You just come after. Well, actually, they could take. I mean, I don't know which way to go. It doesn't really matter. I think it's fine because if they take with check, you just take the rook and it's completely winning. So maybe they try to hang on to the rook, where it really doesn't matter, and you just go here, and then you're still guarding that, and game over. You just got your 2-pass pawns coming again. So really, it was about getting those kingside pawns, even though it came down to equal pawns. Ultimately, it was all about this breakthrough though, because as we said, you're actually giving him pawns. So it's still perceptive, right? To understand that he could give away some queenside pawns, still keeps his c-pawn there to keep the knight at bay. Then he's suddenly at this concentrated force. Now it's white's move. He's got to deal with the f-pawn, but there's no time. So he had to calculate this scenario. You don't have to calculate everything, but you just have to know if I have the doubled rooks and I play e3, it's irresistible. And obviously the king can't walk into the pin because then you can just take the pawn or push. Yeah, I'd probably take, but no, actually this is very interesting. Can't take, this is collapsing, right? Let's say I try and do this. Well, now we could take. I don't know if there's anything to this. I think we just take. And then obviously the h-pawn is going to fall again too. I mean, we just pile up on it with the rooks and bishops if we need to. Probably just one piece will take it, right? So yeah, it's just too much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're only down a pawn right now. We're going to get him back. It's like a famous Capablanca game against Tartakower. Offers 3 pawns, wins them all back, and wins. And then he has a winning rook and pawn endgame, the extra pawn. So, and then it breaks it up, and that's the key. That's it. Using that central pawn, see, to the break. The break leads to the e-pawn leaving, which allows us to push our e-pawn. And despite the fact that we lose the d-pawn, we still tactically are able to push to e3 and justify this, which allows us to reach g3, which allows us to reach h4. Pretty nice, huh? It's cascading. It begins with our doubled c-pawn, actually. Our doubled c-pawn enables g5, and then we cascade across from c6 to d5 to e4 to f2 to g3 to h4. You see that?
That's great.
I'm not sure if we can say the a4 pawn plays a role. I'm sure it does. Well, no, it does. The a4 plays a role insofar as the b pawn can't help.
Right.
So it kind of helps. And in some cases that we win the b pawn, and then we win the a pawn, and we promote, and we have an asset that hopefully promotes here. In combination with our h pawn, we can use our bishop to support the a pawn. So we have to worry about the a pawn. So that really is an asset. And again, they can't attack it because even if they get, hypothetically, if the knight were to get to c3, which would take forever, then we just take the c pawn because it's blocking the rook. So they can't do anything about our a pawn. It just sits there. You got to watch out for it in some middle games like bishop c2 and takes or whatever. Got to watch out for it in the middle game. But in the end game, funny enough, it actually doesn't matter. So it's very cool. Gives it up, breaks through. It's all about, it doesn't matter. About center doesn't matter. About winning the wing pawns ultimately. You can't hold the h pawn. No way. You can, if you need to, you have 3 pieces at your disposal to hit that h pawn. Needed to, you can double, but he didn't need to. He already knows that he has, there it is. And I guess, if he really wanted to, he could do this. I'm sure that wouldn't work. Well, you can play that. You can come here now. Can't play b3. A pawn's gone, but you can't play b3 because we take the knight. So yeah, and then he just picks up this pawn. Again, the knight has nowhere to go. That's just bad, whatever. Do whatever you want. Take this one if we want. I mean, there's nothing to do. And then we just win the c pawns. Let's say he waits or whatever. Then we're down again. We're down 1 pawn, but it really doesn't matter. And actually, this pawn will fall because we could take this the bishop. I mean, the knight can be taken by the bishop. Okay, what about this? We can also choose to destroy the pawns, and I think we simply have a winning rook and pawn endgame. We're down a pawn, but we're going to clean up some pawns.
So is black winning because the pawn structure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, interestingly enough, going back to Nikki's point about the centralized king, right? It's just, he's just getting in the way. And it's allowing, remember like the one where he allows the check on the second rank, or it allowed the problem where it has to run, if it runs to the F file, it gets taken. It was on D1, it allowed tactics with the bishop on the not the longest, the H6 to C1 diagonal, and the check on D3. So that became highly problematic. So yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And yeah, now so this creates ultimate fragmentation. I mean, if not, then get away with it. They're going to play like b4, but no, they just can't do it. Look at our piece activity, superior bishop overnight, and like I said, they really can't do that. But if we really needed to, we can probably find a way to triple up on it And there are also the ideas of playing for g5 sometimes and simply trading it and having a passed h pawn. But why are we going to do that when we can have it all? Win the h pawn and have two connected passed pawns as he did, which white allowed, because otherwise, if they don't do that and this happens, and already winning a pawn back. I mean, this must be winning. What can they do? Okay, let's say they try this to check. There's nothing to the check though, actually. Everything's covered beautifully, right? Okay, can we insert? You could, this is the thing, like this is weak, it'll fall anyway. Let's go ahead and take this one to take the a pawn now. They can't hold the a pawn, see? Game over. Pretty much game over, because these pawns are all feeble. You're going to be up a pawn, past c pawn, and probably win another pawn. 2 pawns up, if nothing else. So it's pretty cool, huh? Really
Very.
nicely done. Yeah, he picks up the pawn. And again, now the story is you're down a pawn, but it's irrelevant because you have the superior pieces and you have the 2 connected passed pawns, and the bishop is just excellent in this position. Even though the knight came in, just make sure it doesn't fork you, right? There's no fork in sight because you're covering e7 and stuff, right? Nothing to do. And we ultimately push, 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 and here come the pawns. And then we have a tactic. But again, even without the tactic, there's that king again getting exposed, allowing this. Even without the tactic, though, with the fork now, it's still completely win. You can see, let's see what the computer says, right? Let's say they don't go king c2. Well, actually, it was all forced, you know? Funny enough, this was forced. Rook b2 is a blunder. Don't walk into the line, don't walk into the colors, but oh, funny enough, he was about to go rook b2 check and try to mate him. Well, not yet, but trying to set up a mating attack. Then it backfired. Okay, maybe he should have gone rook here. Let's run the computer evaluation just to see briefly. It'd be interesting. What does the engine say? Just, you know, quick stockfish analysis. I mean, it's got to be overwhelming. Still, I mean, you can imagine that this is a lot better, but we still have checks. That's the problem. We still have the check. We lure him into the check. It's just that there isn't like the 2 rooks on the dark squares get with the fork possibilities anymore. But now we have our check, king c2, and oh, then we just check and take the e pawn. Well, let's take a look at that briefly. It says take the e pawn and then go h3. Let's see what it says. As long as there's not a mate that he has, then we're good. So it's saying rook a2. Let me go back there. It's saying so rook a2. It's saying check, and then it was simply saying take this, meaning that there wasn't but now there's not even any more check. Yeah, there's not even this check. So if he goes to b2 to try to check, then the rook gets taken and there's the fork thing. And if he's on a2, then he can't go to a7 because the bishop's covering. So there's nothing to do. Okay, because here, that's nothing. Can we take another one with check? Yeah, we just take this one with check, and you can't come up. Yeah, and then we're up 2 pawns with the superior. Oh, oops, then he gets forked. See, he still gets forked, so he has to do something else. Oh wait, no, he almost gets forked. Oh, now he gets forked this way. Yeah, actually, there's no way. Is there any way to not get forked? There's a king here. Now he might get mated. Yeah, it's just a loss. Wait, that's interesting. Is he just losing no matter what? Like, I mean, is he losing material no matter what right now? I mean, we have so many ways to win, but yeah, you're up 2 pawns and there is no follow-up. So, I mean, you're simply just have a winning material advantage. But I wonder if there's some type of mating set up here. I mean, you can always go like bring your rook, but the computer suggested h3 at some point. You can certainly just start pushing your h pawn and promote in conjunction with all the loose pieces and the king that's about to get mated. So game over. Yeah, so something -8, confirming that. Okay, you guys have any questions about that game and these little puzzles embedded in it? No?
Nope.
Okay, there's another one. This one, again, I sent you guys. This is the one that I just showed you. There was a position that I gave you at the very end, right? Which was to find rook, the move that I accidentally went over, the move that I accidentally passed, which was rook takes d5, and you guys all saw it. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to think outside the box a little bit in terms of giving your rook up for the knight, but then you see this, try to exploit this diagonal and game over.
Yeah, yeah.
But
yeah.
The other one, this is from Mir Khan, which actually became like a French. A lot of times it does. Usually in Mir Khan, you activate your bishop. In this case, you didn't. I mean, this was kind of probably in modern chess, they wouldn't have done this. Basically, the Mir Khan, then he goes e6 and c5. It's a little bit of a different move order. But still, it's similar because you'll often have, there's a line. I like to play bishop f5 here if I'm playing the Mir Khan, but there is a line where you go c5 right away, which is not bad at all. But you have to, So you have to move your c pawn twice, but then again, white moved the e pawn twice. And you're gonna try and prove that white's advance of the e pawn, even though it gained space, was not good, you know, hypermodern strike back kind of thing, right? But yeah, I would play bishop f5. Let's see, c5 is moved, but he actually goes e6. You don't get your bishop out, and effectively it's a French, but
It is a French.
yeah, it's a French where, and you play the French, right? It's like a French with kind of a tempo down, though, right?
Yeah.
But then again, it's a slow game. It didn't really matter, you know, it didn't really hurt him at all. It's interesting. It is a slower game that's close, and we know that he likes these kind of sort of more static situations. Yeah, we have the French thing, right?
Yeah,
It
I'm very
doesn't really
curious
hurt-
about this one.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt him. You'll see. This could be a French with white having an extra, with white already having f4 in or something, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. How he still works stitches, man. Oh, maybe that wasn't a good move there.
Uh-uh.
Oh, now the thing is that now, I mean, it's a slow game, and white has created weaknesses now, right? Like c3, c4. He's going to exploit that. So watch out, e5 pawn's hanging. He has to play f4, and he can't play f4. Bishop b3 first, comes back, then he plays f4.
Okay.
That's where he goes f5. You're starting to see this like from the puzzle. So this is very closed game, right? And that's why time doesn't matter as much as in development, right?
Right.
Time is less relevant when it's closed. So some space-time stuff going on. Oh, that's kind of funny looking. It's kind of cool. Two bishops,
It's a
two
little
knights
box.
stacked. Yeah, a little box with the pieces in there. Not really doing anything though. So you can see it's not an issue. Oh, and of course, yeah, it begs the question, what if the pawn were to take on Passant? Well, that's very typical. Of course, you know that from the French, right?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest ask why, but I see why.
No, that's a good question to think. You got to think about it. There is the weak e6 pawn, which is guarded, of course. Now, interestingly, in a Khan, I've seen this. Like, oh, why not do that in a Khan? A lot of times, the light square bishops gets traded off, and this becomes weak. But the fact that we still have our light square bishop, it's not a great bishop, but at least it anchors our pawn. And it's kind of acting like a pawn in that sense. But of course, it will be able to come out later on. And again, like the other game, remember the d5 break to let the dark square bishop. Now we can maybe go for the e5 break to let the light square bishop out. I assume it would knight takes back. Some people might even go pawn takes in certain lines. Probably not here, but there are lines where you might do that. Maybe you castle queen side and king f7. And there's weird lines where that actually can happen.
Yeah, I've seen
and you go for
something
G.
about
You've
that.
seen this, yeah. You've seen a Karpov game in a Khan like that. I think the bishop was on f5 and he does this, which is unexpected of Karpov, right?
Uh-huh.
He would go with the kind of more aggressive loosening move, but it worked. You know, it actually tightens his center though, just opens up his king side. But you can castle queen side in many cases. Castle queen side, king b8, put on the plate, rook c8, stuff like that. Like, okay, if you can deal with the pawn push. So yeah, maybe bishop takes, but then we don't really. You're threatening knight takes b4. But I think the move is probably just to develop your knight, and you have a lot of activity. You've destroyed much of white's center. That's a good battle then. But white wants to keep the squeeze. That's where I said, you know, it got a little bit tight, a little bit of a compact position, kind of squeezed. But you can see white's attack is kind of dead on arrival in a way. It's trying to play g4, you know, rook g1, g4 to break something up. But even that's not simple. Okay, bishop's bad. Let's reroute it, right? Bishop h5 is much better than bishop d7. Okay, he's threatening the pawn. See, the second the bishop goes away or moves, e6 is a problem, right? And if you take the knight, the other knight just takes back. So, okay, let's just guard that. Bishop tucks back, maybe reroute, I guess. Here's our bishop here. Our bishop pins the knight. Queen gets out of the way. To his back. So it's kind of, it looks terrible, right? It's like, wait, why is your bishop going to g6? It looks like a tall pawn, right?
Huh.
This is where the deep idea comes into play. Now, I guess I'm not sure what you could have done. You could have maneuvered a little more, but they go for a3, which, I mean, I guess they're trying to play c4 now. Did you see? It's like in a Slav thing where black goes a6 to play c5. So it's a theme there. I assume it's just solidified to play c4 and bust open the center, because obviously white centralization is good, hoping to do that. But now black has a great move. What did you guys see what it was from the diagram? Did you guys solve this? So it's tactical and strategic at the same time.
Oh. Mm.
I don't know if the knight sack works. It may work, the knight sack. Like
Yeah.
takes
Yeah, I
takes,
was thinking that too.
and then somewhere bring the bishop back down, and then the queen over. But it is a little bit slow moving.
Well, Richard, what are you thinking of?
Knight sack to expose the king.
Oh,
Knight sack where?
oh,
Knight G4.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right though. It's well, they don't have to take. They can go like bishop G1 or something. But assuming they were to take, yeah, you're right. Oh, you'd open up the bishop though. You would gain a tempo. But as you said, it's like, and you have to watch out for E6 too. And the queen is not. And maybe if the queen were closer, you'd have some ideas like almost like a classic bishop sack where you get rid of the H pawn and try to play G3. But yeah, it's not really there. But you got to look at it. Care that they move. What's another one?
I thought the other night you meant.
There is that too, Nikki. Yeah, you saw it.
Yeah.
What happens with a knight sack on E5?
If the pawn takes, then you could push up your pawn, exposing the bishop on the queen, and you're also attacking their bishop, their dark square bishop. And that's all I got.
So you get the piece back. You guys see that? So
Yeah.
you free. It's useful because you get rid of one of the central pawns. Effectively, you'd be trading an F pawn for an E pawn. I think, right? That's good. No, F pawn for F pawn rather, because the E pawn the E pawn it respawns. So effectively, it's kind of like you're taking the F pawn, but then you give up your F pawn and you unleash your bad bishop to trade that one off, and you get you get the bishop on E3 too. When you push, you can take that. So it's pretty good.
Wait. So knight takes knight at D4, and
E5.
what? Oh no, okay, E5.
Yeah, you take there, it doesn't do much for you.
Right.
Oh, that's another thing. That's another thing. They can, if they want, they can take back this way and they're going to the B bar. But I imagine if that were to happen, they'd probably take back the knight to keep it centralized. They still want their knight there. As I said, you can always take, they kind of reproduce there on D4 and then they hit E6. So
so she said knight takes pawn at E5.
Yeah, so let's calculate that. What's going to happen next?
Okay, and then the pawn takes knight. Pawn takes knight, and then you push your pawn up to F4.
Then what happens?
Bishop knight maybe takes them. And then the rook. Well, no, because the queen is sitting there. So once you push your F pawn, if the queen doesn't do it, you just take her.
Yeah. So that you get the bishop back, and you're exchanging, and that it's kind of a cryptic move. It's like, why are you going bishop G6? It looks so passive.
Yeah.
It just looks like his totally passive move.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like the queen's threatening to mate or something. But yeah, but it's like, it's actually a very aggressive idea. So maybe the queen should have moved away in hindsight. Job, no aggression. Okay. Knight takes, pawn takes. And if they don't take back, okay, we just win a pawn. Then you go knight C4. That's great, right? We don't even care.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't care about that bishop. We want to keep our knight. Right. That bishop's not a good bishop anyway. Then try and go D4, but it's not good. Then you get your rook C8, pressure on the C file. Excellent knight. Up a pawn. Life is good. And we can actually take our H6 knight too. Whether you go rook C8 now, we'll get the rook on C8, of course. I think so, but we can also do a great maneuver of knight F7 to D6, supporting our knight, but also you could come in here and we just totally dominate. Right.
That's a really nice maneuver.
And then our bishop can always come back out this way,
Mm-hmm.
or it can even, who knows, sometimes it comes this way. But our bishop will free itself. And you can also play E5, kind of still busting. So you have a lot. I would probably keep it here, though. I like it. It's fine. Good job. All right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, you just win the pawn, but you have a good position. So they take. It comes here. The tempo. And again, I suppose she could have gone to D2, but and we take with tempo. With pawn takes, I guess. She probably could have gone there. They go all the way back. Trade, and take on E3. I guess they figure, hey, I'm going to get the pawn back. But actually, he made it very difficult because he has bishop G5. Made it very difficult to recapture the pawn. In which case, I think black is up a pawn, right? Currently. 7 to 6, yeah. So if they can keep that pawn, it's just, you know, great. And we have the E pawn can come under fire, even knight f7. You know, this pawn can come under fire, and we have the bishop that can go g5, and suddenly we can have that good bishop again, right? And we've given up our bad bishop, which is horrendous on g6. Like I said, May is okay on h5, not great. That was like a Dutch kind of thing. When you play f5, the stonewall, we have that stonewall Dutch setup, and that bishop, only way it sees light usually is e8 to h5. In this case, very creative g6, piece sack, pseudo sacrifice, temporary sacrifice. Okay, here we are. Looks good. I think the evaluation is shifting quickly. Hold the pawn. So yeah, probably they should have taken back with like maybe the knight, recapture on e3, or kept queen on d2. So they gave us the pawn temporarily. Still holding that pawn. Oh, now they go g4. Okay, that's just not healthy looking, is it? So now they have, look at the weaknesses. Why don't you guys tell me? I'll make X's. Why don't you guys tell me where the weaknesses are? Well, in our own position, which are minimal, let's focus on white's weaknesses, and we can also mention our own just to be objective.
I like to call those moves out of line.
You like what?
I like to call those moves out of line. I'm like, is this out of line if I do this? And then, yeah, that one looks out of line.
G4?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it weakens the knight on f3 too. It might be tactics. But what are the exact the main weak points that white can in white's position that black can try to access?
Well, you got h3 this week, and you got
Yep. That used to be guarded by the G pawn. That's gone. So this whole light square
you got
complex. What else?
the space this week as well, g2.
Yeah, this whole like light squared complex in here. What else? Well, a lot of things in there. Yeah, the king side's very weak.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah.
We could take the C file. I mean, I know that's not really where our focus is at the moment, but
No, we can work that too. Like, we don't need to just focus here because we always have that. But yeah, well, where are the weaknesses? Okay, on the C file, there are weaknesses, right?
yes.
C4, C3, C3.
So
pawn.
if f3 is weak, then e5 is weak.
Yeah, and here
Uh-huh.
E5 and E4, because
Uh-huh.
E4, no pawns to guard that. So ideally, we get a knight there, or it could be a queen check there later. I mean, queen's there, it doesn't mean you can't get there later on, right? Very possible. Maybe you can have that rook lift. See, Nikki, you can definitely have the rook coming into C4. And then you can swing, maybe you have like a knight sack and then take this way, right? There's so many possibilities. Maybe you go here and then you double up on f4 if the knight moves. Maybe if the knight moves, you take c3 and pile up on that. So many options, right? But definitely like idea of getting into e4, maybe win the e pawn that way with knight f7. There's just too much maneuverability here based on those weaknesses. And like, let's say they want to go, then it's very hard for them to go knight e to d4. Well, first of all, they're not blockading that pawn, which might matter in the future, but also the c3 pawn would come under more fire. And really everything in there, you know, b3 is not guarded by anything, a3 similar to h3. I mean, that all matters, right? Because like then you can maybe probe. And again, these are intrinsically weak because
This
is already weak because nothing can guard those. But it's just a question whether they can be accessed. But now that the pawns are moving so much, that those are more accessible. So those are kind of your inherent weaknesses in the position. But it's all about what's accessible. Now, of course, they would say a weak back rank. Well, if they abandon the back rank, then it's already weak, right? You don't have to do anything with pawns except for like make sure that you have like an open line that you can get through pawns. But intrinsically, they're weak, right? If you can get there, because what matters is are they attackable. But literally, these are all weak. G3, the entire first three
all those axes.
Everything. All of this except for like except currently G4, D4. Those are the only ones that aren't. And E5 because it's not guarded by any pawns. And then this by extension because they can't really play H4, and this one. And then we hold D5. So basically, what are the only ones that aren't weak? I mean, the very weak position, right? So something's got to happen. So G4 is held by the H3 pawn. We can maybe undermine that if we need to. Again, we can even sack. So there's pressure on that. D4 is definitely, that's not a weakness really because the C3 pawn and not everything else guards it. But if we can collapse C3, then D4 would be accessible. Or maybe we can push the D pawn later as like a break. And then B4 is obviously, they're holding, let's be fair, they have they have control over b4. It's probably not a weakness. But then again, we can probe it with a5. Maybe we get there too, right? Maybe a5, maybe using that with sticking its neck out kind of to make a break on the flank, just like we saw the Zarabak game with, remember the French, we used the C file too, Nikki? Then he went h5, and then that enables him, I think, to access f5. So we can go a5, provoke the push, then a3 becomes accessible, and c5 becomes a weakness, and now it isn't. a5 takes open the rooks. There's too much. There's too much. As for us, I mean, again, e6 is always, that's our main problem, which is why, we had to watch out with knight d4 taking e6. b6 is a weakness. These are weaknesses. F pawn's missing. So certainly we have things to look out for, but it's just your end like c7 square if the rook can reach it, which it can't. b7 pawn, nothing can reach it. But like those are hypothetically, those could be weaknesses too, but we're the one with the initiative and they can't get in. And we're pressing, and their weaknesses are going to matter a lot more than ours. They won't have time, right?
And they have a lot more red X's.
Yeah, they have like 4 times more than us, right? So, all right. So we have rook c8, c8. Why not? Yeah, there we did it anyway. Yeah, and that you mentioned that, Nikki. So it is good. Okay, come in. And we're aiming at that pawn. On e5, at a4. Nothing better to do. Comes back. Look at, again, it's very instructive to look at the guy. Look at Khan's patience. Look at how patient this guy is, right? Okay, here's g5. Interesting. So he's anchoring in the bishop, it looks like. See what he has in mind. Oh, there it is. There's that lateral movement.
yeah.
And that's where you might see the sack on g4 in certain tactical scenarios. The knight on h6, it has some poison. But again, I mean, like I said, you can go rook e4 and knight f7. You could just pick off the e pawn and like, okay, I'm up 2 pawns and my center's going to storm you. That's a way to try to win it. He doesn't allow it. There's knight f7. There it is. See? I mean, I've already seen the game, but still, nonsense. Now, so what?
That's cool.
Okay, but no, this is just like this must be game now, right? We're in. Exploiting the weaknesses. I mean, you're in on f2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's kind of useful to count the pawns. And the g pawn could fall. But look at the weak g. I mean the g5 pawn, and then look at the weak g4 pawn now because of h4. Well, funny enough, a4 actually did weaken the strong b pawn a little bit, and definitely this was already a little bit brittle, but now it's just probably going to collapse. Check. Interesting. Why do you think he did that? He's aiming for the better rook and pawn, rook queen situation. Heavy beats. Whatever you do, just don't take g5 and let them kind of h2. We don't need that, probably not. But what's the deal with this? Why do you think he did that? Kind of grand finale now. I mean, nothing super fancy. It's very direct. What do you think it is?
Just
Trying to reach his weaknesses. Probe.
He probably just have the queen to take g5.
But even there, you have to be a little. What's the thing, Lynn, to be careful about if your queen takes g5?
Let's see. Then his queen could come down and checkmate you.
Well, I don't know if it's checkmate.
Well, I don't know if it's checkmate.
It's not pleasant. It's not. Well,
it's not pleasant. No.
Well, if we're gonna do it, we can do it now. It's not checkmate actually, but yeah, we don't need it.
No,
And it might still be. I don't know. I mean, it might be winning anyway, but then they have this move, so it's not over yet, right? We're probably winning, but no, we just don't need it, right? It's not necessary yet, but we'll make it easier. Now, why did he take this though? What's going to happen? Visualize what's going to happen. Again, it's not like a pure, immediate. Well, it's pretty immediate, but it's not like boom, it's done. But what's happening next after pawn takes bishop?
Pawn takes bishop and queen comes back up to B. No.
You gotta stay defensive with that queen. Not
Yeah.
What else?
Um.
What can happen? What about the rooks?
the 2 pickies on the 7th or the 2nd.
Yeah, that's it. Game over.
Yeah.
I think he resigns about now. He's on for a couple more moves. But yeah, that's done. And we do have we have like 1 pawn, technically. but it doesn't even matter. Well, you know, it's interesting because the queen could take the pawn, stopping queen takes g5. Well, then they just go here. That didn't help them. Check. And then do they resign? They gotta resign soon. What's going on with this move?
Mm.
Why is it so strong? We're really using that
Well,
c
you
file.
can-
This
he
is
could always-
about more than the
And
c
you could
file.
you could check
He
the.
could push that pawn, the e pawn, you know, I mean,
You mean for
he could do
black?
that. He
I
could
think
put,
I think rook check might work and be close to mate. Rook check. Rook
Yeah,
check.
the
rook takes
pawn
rook, queen
move,
takes-
interestingly, if the king takes, you can promote with the
Yeah.
discover check. What about this, Lynn?
yes, you can do that too.
That geometry there.
Queen, yeah, h2.
Now he does resign.
Give up all my, I like, that's my problem. I don't like to give up stuff, but I know I gotta give some, get some, so.
Yeah, that's
In this
the,
case,
I'm
it doesn't. In this
learning that.
case,
Theme
it's
of the
giving
day,
up
right?
minimal.
Right,
The minimum you can give up for checkmate.
yeah,
So focus on that.
yeah,
Maximizing your forces. Now maximizing your pawn, yeah. And then
Yeah.
the queen here allows you to guard the rook. So it's understandable. And again, if they take the rook, like let's say whatever, let's just give them a pass or whatever, then that's bad. That's almost, is that almost mate? Now we can mate with the rook or the queen here.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's bad. Oh wait, what about this one? We'll find ways. We will find ways. Yeah, but we just don't. Again, it's what do we need? We need checkmate right now, right? We don't need this yet. And also,
No.
it doesn't threaten the queen just yet either because the rook is covering. So it's just more immediate, right? But probably they can't cover. They'd have to like give away their queen or something. And then we're talking with now we're talking about our pawn, right?
hmm
And then, well, I mean, that's just game, right? That's just game over. Check. Oh, wait, sometimes we could do like check, check, check. And that's a typical motif in order to allow us to trade
Nice.
down.
Yeah.
That's easy. Probably there's something nastier than that. Check, check. Oh yeah, that's the nastier way.
Ooh,
That's the nastier way. And then we
Mhm.
just win that, and then we go do our ladder mate, and yeah, come over, game over.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's nice. Let's review real quick. How did he do this? So it's very interesting. And there you go, Nikki. He kind of wasted that move. Well, again, it's like one thing if you're going to waste a move, but your bishop gets to come out. You didn't even get your bishop out. So it's like same thing as a French. It just shows you. It's very interesting to understand this, that we don't need to be too afraid of white when we're playing against, like, you know, white it's got some sting, you know, like the advanced French and the Yugoslav attack, for example. But there are certain lines that just show you don't need to respect it, but be intrepid at the same time. Because objectively, it's not like you don't, you know, it's not like white's winning. You have a lot of resources. So even with the tempo down, you're playing black and you lost another tempo. It's a close game, though. Just playing normally, it's doing just fine. You know, you've got to prove it.
Yeah.
Maybe nowadays like best play, you know, but still, it's going to
I
take.
think I have a tendency to see ghosts. I think all of us have a tendency to see ghosts. When we get a little
Yes.
bit tentative and
I see a lot of ghosts when I play the French, that's for sure.
Yeah, you gotta be cautious. But like F5 was a great resource for black. Keep it closed, and then when it's closed, the timing doesn't matter. You know, you have a lot of time. You know, time is less important than. It's all
What's the
about how you
evaluation?
effectively
Oh, sorry.
resources. What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, like, what was was that right of white to take that pawn? Like, that doesn't look right.
Taking on T5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was wrong. And you see the exploitation of that with where B4 really worked against him.
Yeah. Like, that didn't look
I mean,
normal. Like, it looks like it helped him get his tempo back and, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, this was is he playing? I guess he wasn't the strongest player, like probably like a solid master back in 1929. So probably, I don't know. I mean, I could see it happening, but there's just no
Yeah.
need to do that. Really, no need.
okay.
I mean, unless he felt like the pressure was insurmountable on D4, but he.
Yeah,
Well,
like he said, like
interestingly,
F4
he is
or
threatening it because he's got Bishop D7. There's no Bishop
Mhm.
B5 tricks. So he's kind of threatening the pawn. What's that, Nikki?
no, I was just thinking like maybe like he should have played. I don't know what they usually do. Like, Lord, I forget. But I don't know, like maybe your F4 thing.
Yeah,
If you just,
F4
like,
is typical. Yeah, and then maybe he would still play F5, and you get something very similar to the game.
yeah, yeah.
Um, hmm. And what I was saying too is about like the Yugoslav attack, for example. There's line like the accelerated Dragendorf. It's like just completely sort of disrespecting it, but it just shows you. It's like if the main idea of the Yugoslav attack is just to push your H pawn, like that's white doesn't have too many more resources. I mean, there's like G4 is H pawn, G pawn. There's knight to D5. But if you think about it, in an open Sicilian, white has lost a central pawn. So it's like it's not like it's so imposing, you know. Um, yeah, so and there are resources that black has. You don't have to worry too much about it. But it just shows you, you know, like I mean, the Dragendorf is not totally accurate. The accelerated Dragendorf, Simon Williams, you know, it's one of his spicy openings that he covers.
Hmm.
But it just shows you, though, black can often do well just kind of staying in the center because white just lacks some center. Whereas similarly here, white pushes to E5, they take away the central tension. So it just depends how white handles the center. But again, in the Yugoslav attack, the knight d5 resource is pretty good because they're using the half open d file in here, half open c file. Anyway, that's another thing. But it just shows you don't be too afraid. We're down to tempo from usual. It worked out. Right? But you'll see, it's just such a solid player. Kind of like try to do stuff to me. He's like, I guess you could say he's kind of a defensive player, you know? It's like, see what you could do to me. It never worked. And then ultimately he would get something. But see, once he gets what he wants here, no worries anymore. He handled it correctly, right? Right, a little bit inaccurately.
And just think, he didn't even have the computer engines to support him.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I mean, going back to all these classic games until you get into like the 70s or some 80s, you know, really until the 80s and 90s. Yeah, but this is pretty cool that he would think of this idea. Obviously, it's a little trap, right? I think white walked right into this.
Hmm.
I mean, what about this move? How about that? But you still see that C4 square. I think wasting a move now, and then you just go like maybe rook C8 and just keep on putting pressure on them. Hey, who knows? Maybe black could even play for G5 because it's locked up. Maybe King H8. I don't know. It might work out later. But yeah, certainly I think they shouldn't have walked into this because now black gets to get what they get what they want. They trade effectively by trading off the F pawns, right? Because the F pawn moves and becomes an E pawn again. So the E pawn's still there, but effectively trading off F pawns means the E pawn becomes weak, becomes unsupported, and then the bishop gets to trade off with tempo. Get rid of their strong. No, now it becomes never mind. That was the strong bishop. E2. And the E3 bishop could be active. Now we take that one. We have bishop versus knight, but our dark squared bishop is pretty good. He's using those in both games. He has his strong dark squared bishop, interestingly. And then, yeah, I don't know what G4 is. That's just bad. Oh, but you know, I understand because he hates this. He'd hate to see
Yeah,
this.
he's frustrated.
It's frustration, yeah. But
Yeah.
knight F5 is strong. And then then he'd probably go G4 anyway, at which point the black knight would come in more. So he's like, fine, I'll just, you know, have to suck it up and go G4. Here comes the rook. Rook lift. Patience. Look at that patience. Rook back to F8. Again, maybe it's not the computer's most accurate move, but it worked, you know. He has not, but I guess he realized like, oh, I don't need rook F7 based on no, you know what it was? Previously the bishop wasn't on F4. Now that the bishop's on F4, he's like, oh, I can go knight F7 because I'm hitting this pawn. And then if the knight ever goes back, now we have G5. And then that allows us to even take back with the pawn and anchor our E3 pawn, which is certainly not pleasant for white to have that splinter. See, that's the idea. It's brilliant, actually. See that? When we look at it, it allows it to now he comfortably goes. And again, if you do it now, it's not good because now it takes, and then queen could take this pawn. No need for that, right? But what he does, he gets it in when it's safe. Then when the knight, now he gets for knight F7. The moment the knight goes back, he goes to G5. And now obviously it's not as favorable to take because then that's where you get the F pawn easily guarded. And now the E pawn's guarded, and that's just a monster. And then we could still go back to F7 and still go after the E pawn, at which point we'll have this massive pawns shoving them forward, steamrolling him, right? And we'll be up 2 pawns, which is completely lost. That's really brilliant the way it's instructive to look at this game. I'll send you guys the link to this game.
Yeah, this is a great game.
It is, yeah. And this was one of his first wins in the first British Championship where he came out swinging. the other one was the Sultan of Swat, right?
Yeah, so the
This is-
SWAT.
Yeah, then it's done. So I mean, there were obviously some mistakes made by White. I mean, why are you gonna? I mean, there really wasn't much else to do. I mean, objectively, maybe the queen should have gone back, and then the knight should take back. But
Oh,
there's,
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
there were still ways to come into f2. I think. What's that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's some kind of like I just know like when I play the French, it's always like they're just all up in my grill, like on the king side with their queen and the F pawn and the a lot of pieces are over there.
Yeah, this is a good example of using f5.
Yes.
F5, either f6/f5. I mean, maybe it's de facto f5, f6 if they take en passant, but you could study those games. And one of remember the one we looked at, the pawn break game where f6 is played. Who was that? Do you recall? Was it
Oh,
Korchnoi or something?
yes.
I think it was Korchnoi. Pretty cool game where he plays that cold-blooded. He allows like queen takes h7 or something. He just walks
Yeah.
his king to the center.
Yep.
He's just up a piece, kind of like your game again, where you should take that piece and just cold-blooded moves, right?
Yes.
Fearless.
Nice cold-blooded, like just
Fearless.
like calculate it and then just yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ideally calculated, right? Or intuitively, but ideally you back it up with cold hard calculation.
Yes.
But yeah, actually I was gonna say queen e2, but I don't think that works either. Well, this is just horrendous. I mean, that's a feeble attempt at counterplay. Like he's not gonna let him take h7, right? He's hoping it's a desperate bid. Yeah. I mean, he's lost, right? But still, like I said though, if the queen goes to e2, well now he can probably just take the c pawn. Whatever. I mean, he could do whatever he wants, but everything's collapsing. Oh, then he could take the b pawn because now there's no more pressure on h7. Let's say takes or something. I mean, you could certainly just play this if you want to. Oh, and then there's this. But anyway, we can get into all that. No, you know what? This probably doesn't matter either. I don't know. There's just too much going on here. I mean, there's just too much. Even this, there's just way too much going on. And then there's I mean, it's just too much. And this is lost. Because now you have rook c2
Yeah,
coming,
just trying to find a way
you
to-
have this coming, and yeah, it's too much. Maybe they challenge it. I don't know. Now we have this idea. We're actually threatening rook. We're actually threatening rook d2 because the pin. I mean, whatever. There's many we can
Yeah,
study
it's
that
cool.
and figure
Or
it
you can
out.
push your
But
pawn, like there's
yeah, we
lots
can
of
figure out the best way. But I'm sure there are many roads there to victory. But yeah, pretty cool. Huh? And the G. But really, I didn't think about that. This really cool idea of he goes bishop f4 now. Then he's hitting the pawn. But the moment the knight goes back, inserts g5. So he's able to anchor in that pawn on e3. He never got to stay. Like I said, they should have taken with c2. Knight takes c2 to take back on e3. And then the queen was misplaced, I think. Never worked out for them. And then, desperate bid for counterplay doesn't work because our counterplay is our play was way stronger. And again, obviously, we're not going to give them h7. You simply win the pawn. And then you're already guarding h7 with queen automatically. And game over. Yeah, and then the little finesse as Richard saw. Game over. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
very
that's
nice
good.
game.
So I'll
That is-
send you guys. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and send you guys the link. Great job. I'll stop.
Thank you.
Oh,
Stop
thank
the
you very
recording.
much.
Okay. See